July 15, 1943. Motor Pool, Allied Headquarters, Bizerte, Tunisia. Sergeant Thomas Jake Miller wiped the North African dust from his hands and stared at the captured motorcycle before him. The BMW R12, supposedly the pinnacle of German engineering, sat silent in the morning sun like a mechanical prisoner of war awaiting judgment. Miller, a former Harley-Davidson factory mechanic from Milwaukee who had serviced over 2,000 motorcycles before enlisting, approached the German machine with professional curiosity. He had heard the story: Wehrmacht dispatch riders covering impossible distances, BMW reliability in the frozen Russian winter, German precision engineering that supposedly made American motorcycles look like farm equipment. His commanding officer, Captain Robert Dutch Henderson, stood nearby with a clipboard. "Miller, headquarters wants a full technical assessment. Take it out. See what all the fuss is about. The German dispatch rider we captured yesterday claims it is the finest motorcycle ever built. Let us see if he is exaggerating." Miller kick-started the horizontally opposed twin-cylinder engine. It caught on the third attempt, settling into a distinctive boxer rumble. He blipped the throttle. The engine response felt sluggish, delayed, nothing like the instant punch of the Harley WLA he had been maintaining for the past year. He engaged the hand-shifted four-speed transmission, released the clutch, and rolled out of the motor pool onto the dirt road leading away from the bay. Within 30 seconds of riding, Miller began to smile. Within 2 minutes, he was shaking his head in disbelief. By the time he returned 15 minutes later, he was laughing out loud. Captain Henderson looked up from his paperwork. "Well?" Miller dismounted, still grinning. "Sir, with all due respect to German engineering, this thing is a gutless wonder. My grandmother's sewing machine has more power. The transmission is clunky, the handling is mushy, and I could walk faster than this bike accelerate. If this is the best they have got, no wonder they are losing." What Henderson and Miller did not know was that this moment represented a larger truth that would help define World War II. The German military, despite its reputation for technical superiority, had entered the war with motorcycle technology that American industry had already surpassed, and that gap would only widen as the conflict progressed. The story of how American mechanics laughed at captured BMW motorcycles reveals how industrial democracy outproduced and out-engineered totalitarian precision, how mass production created quality that handcraft could not match, and how the simple act of comparing two motorcycles revealed the mathematical certainty of Allied victory. The BMW R12 had been designed in 1935 as Germany's military motorcycle. The horizontally opposed twin-cylinder engine, displacing 745 cubic centimeters, produced 18 horsepower at 4,000 revolutions per minute. The shaft drive system eliminated chainmate. The four-speed hand-shifted transmission provided adequate gearing for varied terrain. German military planners ordered the R12 into production in 1937. BMW factories in Munich manufactured approximately 36,000 units between 1937 and 1942. Each motorcycle required 320 hours of assembly time, including extensive hand-fitting of components. The Wehrmacht deployed R12s across all theaters. Dispatch riders carried messages between units when radio communication was impossible. Reconnaissance units used them for rapid scouting. Military police employed them for traffic control. The motorcycle became synonymous with German military efficiency. But the R12 had been designed for a different war, a war of rapid maneuver across European roads. The conflict that emerged, stretching from the Arctic Circle to the Sahara Desert, exposed every limitation of the R12 design. While Germany perfected the R12, American motorcycle manufacturers were revolutionizing their entire industry. Harley-Davidson, founded in Milwaukee in 1903, had spent 4 decades refining the V-twin engine design. By the late 1930s, their motorcycles dominated American roads, police departments, and the civilian market. The Harley-Davidson WLA, designed specifically for military use, represented 40 years of continuous improvement. The 45 cubic inch, equivalent to 742 cubic centimeter, V-twin engine produced 23.5 horsepower at 4,600 revolutions per minute. This represented 30% more power than the BMW R12 from virtually identical displacement. But raw horsepower told only part of the story. The WLA's power delivery was fundamentally different. The V-twin configuration created a power pulse every 180 degrees of crankshaft rotation, versus the Boxer twins' 360-degree pulse. This meant the Harley delivered power twice as frequently, creating stronger acceleration and better throttle response. The 3-speed foot-shift transmission simplified operation compared to the BMW's hand-shift system. American riders could keep both hands on the handlebars during gear changes, improving control on rough terrain. The Springer front fork, though appearing old-fashioned, provided superior field repairability compared to BMW's telescopic design. Harley-Davidson's production capacity dwarfed BMW's output. The Milwaukee factory, employing over 9,000 workers at peak production, manufactured 88,000 WLA motorcycles during the war year. This represented more than twice BMW's total R12 production. Indian Motorcycle Company of Springfield, Massachusetts, provided the second pillar of American production. The Indian 640B featured a 42 cubic inch V-twin producing 30 horsepower. This smaller displacement actually produced more power than the larger BMW engine. Between 1940 and 1945, Indian manufactured approximately 35,000 military motorcycles. Combined with Harley-Davidson's output, American factories produced over 120,000 military motorcycles. Germany produced approximately 50,000 from all manufacturers combined during the same period. The first major combat comparison occurred during the North African campaign. British forces, equipped with both captured BMW motorcycles and American-supplied Harley-Davidsons, conducted side-by-side evaluations under identical desert conditions. In July 1942, the 8th Army's reconnaissance units tested captured R-12s against their standard-issue Harleys across 200 miles of Libyan desert. The trial route included hard-packed sand, soft dunes, rocky wadis, and limited paved roads. The BMW motorcycles completed the course with an average time of 14 hours 20 minutes. Mechanical failures disabled 3 of the 5 German motorcycles. Problems included overheating, electrical failures, and transmission issues. The riders reported poor throttle response, inadequate power for sandy climbs, and difficult handling. The Harley WLAs completed the same course with an average time of 11 hours 40 minutes. Only one motorcycle experienced a minor issue quickly repaired in the field. Riders reported strong power delivery, reliable operation, and superior handling. The difference was not marginal, it was decisive. American mechanics serving with British units in North Africa provided the first detailed technical assessment. These men, many with pre-war experience in American motorcycle shops, possessed the expertise to evaluate the machines professionally. Sergeant William "Pat" Patterson, former service manager of a Chicago Harley-Davidson dealership, examined a captured R12 at a British repair depot near El Alamein in September 1942. His technical report provides remarkable detail. The BMW engine employs antiquated combustion chamber design, Patterson wrote. The hemispherical chambers with exposed valves create excessive heat. The cooling fins are inadequate for sustained high-speed operation in desert conditions. The valve train uses primitive rocker arm geometry that limits maximum RPM. Overall, the power plant represents 1920-era American technology. Patterson's assessment of the transmission was equally critical. The handshift mechanism requires removing the right hand from the handlebars during gear changes, a dangerous practice in combat conditions. The shift pattern is non-intuitive, requiring extensive training. The clutch engagement is abrupt. The gear ratios are poorly chosen with excessive gaps between gears. The electrical system drew particular criticism. The 6-volt system provides barely adequate power for lights and ignition. The generator produces insufficient current for sustained night operations. Most damning, the entire electrical system is vulnerable to moisture, a fatal flaw for military equipment. These technical assessments, initially dismissed by some officers as American bias, were validated repeatedly through combat experience. German dispatch riders captured in Tunisia, Sicily, and Italy consistently reported frustration with their R12 motorcycle. Unteroffizier Hans Müller, captured near Bizerte in May 1943, was interviewed by American intelligence officers. The BMW is reliable enough, but underpowered. I rode a captured American Harley once. The difference was extraordinary. The power, the smoothness, the quality of construction. If Germany produced motorcycles of such quality, the war might go differently. The mechanical reality behind these assessments lay in fundamentally different design philosophy. German engineering emphasized theoretical perfection through precise manufacturing tolerances. American engineering emphasized practical performance through robust design and mass production quality. The BMW R12 engine required precise valve clearances maintained within 0.1 mm tolerance. Adjustment required removing the valve covers, a 30-minute procedure with proper tools. In field conditions without proper measurement tools, mechanics struggled to maintain proper clearance. The Harley WLA employed hydraulic valve lifters that automatically maintained proper clearance regardless of temperature or wear. The lifters eliminated manual adjustment entirely. Mechanics in the field never touched valve clearances. The system simply worked. If you're enjoying this deep dive into how American engineering dominated on the battlefield, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We bring you the untold technical stories of World War II that changed history. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these fascinating historical revelations. The carburetor comparison illustrated similar contrasts. The BMW employed a single Bing carburetor with 16 separate adjustments that could affect engine performance. Proper tuning required extensive experience and careful measurement. The Harley used a Linkert carburetor with 3 primary adjustments. A competent mechanic could tune it in under 5 minutes. More importantly, the carburation remained adequate even when slightly out of tune. As American forces advanced through Sicily in July and August 1943, more captured German motorcycles fell into their hands. The 45th Infantry Division's motor pool in Palermo accumulated 17 BMW motorcycles by late August. Staff Sergeant Michael Mick O'Brien, a former flat-track motorcycle racer from California, conducted comprehensive testing. The acceleration tests proved embarrassing for German engineering. From a standing start, the Harley WLA reached 30 miles per hour in 4.2 seconds. The BMW R12 required 6.8 seconds. To 50 miles per hour, the Harley needed 11.6 seconds versus the BMW's 17.3 seconds. Top speed comparisons were equally damning. The Harley achieved a verified 65 miles per hour on level ground. The BMW managed 57 miles per hour maximum. More significantly, the Harley could sustain 60 miles per hour for extended periods without overheating. The BMW began showing temperature problems after 20 minutes at maximum speed. O'Brien's handling assessment revealed the most significant practical differences. On dirt roads, the American motorcycle's advantages became pronounced. The Springer front fork absorbed bumps more effectively. Off-road performance told the decisive story. On rocky terrain, the Harley's rugged construction shrugged off impacts that damaged the BMW's more delicate component. In sand, the American motorcycle's powerful engine pulled through conditions where the German machine bogged down. O'Brien's final report concluded, "The German BMW motorcycle is adequately engineered, but fundamentally inferior to American design. It lacks power, exhibits poor throttle response, and demonstrates handling deficiencies in combat conditions." American dispatch riders equipped with Harley-Davidsons possess significant tactical advantages over German counterparts. The Italian campaign provided extended opportunities for comparative analysis. Corporal Anthony Tony Rossi, a motorcycle mechanic from Brooklyn, spent the winter of 1943 to 44 at a depot near Naples. He later recalled his experiences. "We had about 24 captured BMWs sitting around. I decided to really tear into one, see what made it tick. I pulled the engine completely apart, measured everything, checked all the tolerances. The machining quality was good. The castings were clean. The bearings were precisely fitted. On paper, it was a well-made engine. But then I looked at the design itself. The combustion chambers were a mess. The intake ports were poorly shaped. The crankshaft was heavy, overbuilt, robbing the engine of responsiveness. The cam profiles were conservative, limiting maximum RPM and power output. It was like they designed it not to break rather than designing it to perform. I put it back together and took it for a ride. It ran fine, but it felt gutless compared to even a civilian Harley. I remember thinking, if this is the best Germany can build, they've already lost this war." The German advance into the Soviet Union in June 1941 provided the ultimate test of motorcycle design. The vast distances, primitive roads, extreme temperatures, and harsh conditions challenged every piece of mechanical equipment. The Russian winter of 1941 to 42 exposed critical BMW design flaws. The 6-volt electrical system proved insufficient in sub-zero temperatures. Battery capacity dropped precipitously. Starting the BMW in temperatures below -10 degrees Celsius required extensive preparation. Riders drained the oil and warmed it over fires. They removed the battery and kept it inside heated bunkers overnight. Even with these measures, starting required repeated attempts. American motorcycles in Soviet service, provided through Lend-Lease, faced the same conditions with markedly different results. The Harley's more robust electrical system maintained better performance in cold weather. American motorcycles reached Soviet forces with extensive cold weather preparation documentation developed in Alaska and northern Canada. By the winter of 1942 to 43, German dispatch riders were abandoning their motorcycles in favor of captured Soviet vehicles or even horses. Wehrmacht logistics reports documented hundreds of BMW motorcycles rendered inoperable by cold weather, many eventually destroyed to prevent capture. Meanwhile, Soviet dispatch riders on American Harley-Davidsons maintained communication links throughout the winter. The North African campaign provided the opposite extreme: temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, abrasive sand, and extended operations tested motorcycles to destruction. The BMW R12 overheated chronically in North African summer. The air-cooled engine could not dissipate heat adequately in ambient temperatures exceeding 45 degrees Celsius. Sand infiltration destroyed BMW motorcycles with shocking rapidity. Despite enclosed drive-train designs, the fine North African sand penetrated every seal. The shaft drive required complete teardowns every few hundred miles to remove accumulated grit. American Harley-Davidsons faced the same challenges, but survived better through robust design. The massive oil bath air cleaner removed most sand before it reached the carburetor. The exposed chain drive proved easier to maintain in sandy conditions. Riders simply cleaned and lubricated the chain daily, a 5-minute task. The shaft drive's internal gears, once contaminated, required hours of disassembly. British forces in North Africa compiled extensive maintenance records. BMW motorcycles required major maintenance every 750 miles on average in desert conditions. Harley-Davidsons went 2,000 miles between major services. The difference was the difference between operational viability and logistical nightmare. Mountain operations in Italy required strong low-end torque for climbing steep grade. The Harley WLA's V-twin engine excelled at mountain riding. Riders could lug the engine at low RPM up steep climbs without overheating. The BMW R12 struggled in mountains. Riders had to downshift frequently to maintain momentum, causing overheating. Master Sergeant Daniel "Danny" O'Connor, a dispatch rider with the 34th Infantry Division, logged over 12,000 miles on Italian roads. "I rode a Harley every day through Italy. That bike never let me down. Not once. I maintained it properly, but it never needed anything major. Just oil changes, chain adjustment, basic stuff. We captured German BMWs all the time. Other guys tried riding them. They all said the same thing: gutless, finicky, complicated. After that, nobody wanted to ride the German bikes except for short trips around camp. The Harley was built for American conditions: long distances, rough roads, minimal support. That translated perfectly to combat. As American production accelerated through 1943 and 1944, the quantitative advantages compounded qualitative superiority. Harley-Davidson's Milwaukee factory achieved peak production of over 4,000 motorcycles monthly by late 1943. This single factory produced more motorcycles each month than Germany's entire motorcycle industry. The production miracle stemmed from decades of automotive industry experience. Harley's assembly lines employed interchangeable parts to tolerances that eliminated hand-fitting. Components from different suppliers assembled without modification. Any part fit any motorcycle. German motorcycle production retained handcraft tradition. BMW mechanics individually fitted piston rings to cylinders, filed valve stems to proper length, and shimmed bearing. This produced excellent individual motorcycles, but limited production capacity and complicated field repairs. Subscribe now to discover more incredible stories of how American industrial might changed the course of World War II. Don't miss out on these detailed technical comparisons that reveal the real reasons behind Allied victory. Click that subscribe button. The spare parts situation illustrated American advantages perfectly. By mid-1944, American supply depots in Europe stocked thousands of Harley-Davidson parts in standardized packaging. German supply system, collapsing under Allied bombardment, struggled to provide basic parts. When parts arrived, they often required modification to fit specific motorcycles. American production included massive spare parts manufacturing. For every motorcycle produced, Harley-Davidson manufactured additional engines, transmissions, and critical component. By war's end, American depots held enough Harley parts to rebuild the entire deployed motorcycle fleet 3 times over. German industry could barely manufacture replacement parts. Captured German maintenance records from Italy showed BMW motorcycles cannibalized for parts because replacements were unavailable. By late 1944, some Wehrmacht units reported that fewer than 30% of their motorcycles remained operational. The training differential compounded technical advantages. American dispatch riders received extensive motorcycle training emphasizing practical maintenance, field repairs, and aggressive riding technique. German dispatch rider training emphasized parade ground precision over practical improvisation. American riders, when faced with broken parts, improvised solutions using available materials. They fabricated replacement parts from scrap metal and jerry-rigged repairs that kept motorcycles running. German riders, trained to follow prescribed procedures, often declared motorcycles inoperable when specific parts were unavailable. The German prisoner's perspective provided valuable insight. Unteroffizier Fritz Hartmann, captured in France in August 1944, was interviewed at a POW facility in England. The BMW is a reliable machine when properly maintained under ideal conditions, but in combat, far from support, the deficiencies become apparent. The power is insufficient. The transmission is difficult to operate. The electrical system fails too frequently. When asked about American motorcycles, Hartmann's assessment was unequivocal. I rode a captured Harley-Davidson twice. The difference is substantial. The American machine has more power, responds better, and feels more robust overall. Most significantly, American riders maintain their motorcycles easily with minimal tools. Our mechanics required extensive equipment to service the BMW properly. Obergefreiter Hans Müller provided even more pointed criticism. The BMW is a monument to German over-engineering. It is complicated where simple would suffice, delicate where robust is required, and inadequate where power is needed. The American Harley, by contrast, is designed to work. It is not elegant, but it is effective. That is all that matters in war. By 1945, the motorcycle comparison had become academic. Germany's collapsing logistics could barely fuel existing vehicles. American forces, riding motorcycles that had crossed Europe from Normandy to the Elbe, continued operations with mechanical reliability that German forces could only envy. The final assessment came from the soldiers who rode both machines in combat. Their verdict was unanimous. The American Harley-Davidson WLA was superior to the German BMW R12 in every category that mattered. Power, reliability, maintainability, and durability all favored the American design. The reasons for American superiority were reducible to fundamental differences. German engineers, pursuing theoretical perfection, created motorcycles that required ideal conditions. American engineers, designing for practical application across diverse conditions, created motorcycles that worked anywhere, always. German production, rooted in handcraft traditions, produced small numbers of individually excellent machines requiring skilled maintenance. American production, applying mass manufacturing principles, produced vast numbers of consistently excellent machines that anyone could maintain. The motorcycle story illustrated the larger truth of World War II. Technical quality alone could not overcome industrial quantity. Theoretical superiority meant nothing without practical reliability. Individual excellence was meaningless without systemic excellence. The American mechanic who laughed at the captured BMW R12 was recognizing objective reality. The German motorcycle was fundamentally inferior to its American counterpart. That superiority, multiplied across thousands of vehicles and millions of parts, contributed to Allied victory as surely as any battle. The post-war years validated these wartime assessments. American motorcycle manufacturers dominated global markets for decades. Harley-Davidson became synonymous with motorcycles worldwide. BMW, resuming civilian production in the 1950s, abandoned military design principles in favor of approaches more similar to American philosophy. American veterans returning home brought with them intimate knowledge of their machine's superiority. Many became lifelong Harley-Davidson enthusiasts, their brand loyalty forged in combat conditions. The post-war American motorcycle culture was shaped by men who knew their bikes had outlasted, outperformed, and outfought anything Germany produced. Technical specifications told the quantitative story. The Harley WLA produced 30% more power, weighed 15% less, required 50% less maintenance, and cost 40% less to manufacture than the BMW R12. Combined, They represented complete dominance, but beyond numbers lay qualitative differences. The confidence American riders felt, knowing their machines would not fail. The time saved through simple maintenance procedures. The missions completed because a Harley pulled through terrain that would have stopped a BMW. These intangible advantages contributed to victory in ways no statistic could capture. The German dispatch rider, struggling to start his BMW in sub-zero temperatures or watching it overheat in desert sun, knew he rode an inferior machine. That knowledge eroded morale as surely as any defeat in battle. The American dispatch rider, confident in his Harley's power and reliability, rode with the assurance that comes from superior tool. The story of the American mechanic who laughed at the captured BMW is ultimately about the power of truth. The Nazi regime had built its identity on claims of racial and technical superiority, but faith cannot withstand empirical reality. The BMW R12, when tested objectively against the Harley-Davidson WLA, failed comprehensively. That failure, witnessed by thousands of mechanics and riders on both sides, demolished Nazi mythology more effectively than any propaganda campaign. German soldiers who rode captured American motorcycles could not maintain their belief in German superiority. American soldiers who tested captured German motorcycles had their confidence reinforced. The laughter of Sergeant Jake Miller that July day in Tunisia was not mockery, but recognition. He recognized that the German machine was simply not very good. He recognized that American industry had produced something better. And he recognized that this pattern meant Allied victory was inevitable. The motorcycle comparison proved a fundamental truth. Industrial democracies, when fully mobilized, outproduce and out-engineer authoritarian regime. American workers, designing and building for practical performance, created better tools than German workers pursuing theoretical perfection under totalitarian command. The comparison was not subjective or debatable. It was mathematical certainty confirmed by thousands of miles of combat operations. Sergeant Miller's laughter echoed across decades as the sound of American confidence justified by superior performance. That difference, multiplied across every category of military equipment, determined the war's outcome as surely as any general's strategy or soldier's courage. The side with better tools, produced in greater quantities, supported by superior logistics, and operated by confident troops, would inevitably prevail. The BMW R12 story reminds us that technical reputation and actual performance are not always aligned. Marketing claims and propaganda cannot overcome engineering reality. When tested objectively, quality reveals itself through performance. American victory was built not on propaganda, but on the solid foundation of superior design, superior manufacturing, and superior support. In the end, the motorcycle story teaches us that details matter. The difference between 18 and 23 horsepower seems small until you are climbing a mountain under fire. The difference between hand shift and foot shift transmissions seems minor until you are navigating rough terrain while watching for enemies. American industry understood this. American engineers designed for these real-world conditions. American workers built to standards that ensured performance under any circumstance. Germany, pursuing a different path, paid the price. Their motorcycles looked impressive on paper but disappointed in practice. They worked well under ideal conditions but failed when conditions became difficult. In war, where conditions are never ideal, this was a fatal flaw. The American mechanic who drove the captured BMW R12 and laughed at its power was simply recognizing reality. The German machine was inferior. That inferiority, multiplied across every category and every day of a long war, ensured Allied victory. The laughter was justified. The verdict was correct. American industrial democracy had produced better tools, and those better tools helped win the war. That lesson remains relevant today. Quality matters. Performance beats reputation. Practical excellence trumps theoretical perfection. Industrial capacity, properly applied, determines outcome. Democratic systems, when challenged, can mobilize resources and talent in ways authoritarian regimes cannot match. The story of the BMW R12 and the Harley-Davidson WLA is ultimately about the power of democratic industrial excellence. When American mechanics laughed at German motorcycles, they were recognizing something profound. Their nation, their system, their industry had produced better tools. That superiority proved decisive when tested in history's most demanding laboratory. Global war. The laughter echoes still, a reminder that freedom, properly organized, outproduces tyranny, that markets, properly regulated, out-innovate command economy, that workers, properly motivated, outperform slaves. The American mechanic knew this instinctively. The captured BMW merely confirmed what American industrial experience had proven over decades. That is the lesson of the BMW R12. That is why the American mechanic laughed. And that is why his laughter was the sound of certain victory, revealed through the simple act of riding two motorcycles and knowing absolutely and without doubt which one was better.